Hi! Welcome back to another video. Today, we're doing a portrait of the most beautiful, most amazing, most wonderful, awesome woman in all the world. Now, a few years ago, I did a similar portrait, but for myself, but I didn't really care. It was just a portrait to do a portrait, just to actually look at myself for who I was instead of whatever my brain thought I was, which at the time was not good, or I wasn't in a good place at the time, so naturally my brain thought bad things, but it helped immensely then, but I didn't really care about the portrait. It was just, alright, whatever, let's just do this, be done with it, move on with my life. This time, though, it was a lot different, and I struggled so much with this portrait, because unlike then, I actually cared this time. I wanted to show off just what I get to see when I look at the love of my life and how beautiful she is, and I want everyone to be able to see it. I want to shout from the rooftops how much I love her. And I think I can prove it in a way that I uniquely can with the artwork that I'm capable of doing. Now, there's a lot of footage that didn't make it into this video because I just could not get it right, and I was beyond frustrated to the point of almost scrapping this entire project. But I got so desperate to the point that I'm like, you know what? Whatever. I'm just going to take the picture. I'm going to take my picture I'm using as a base, do a very, 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 very rough sketch by tracing it, and then I will continue working at it nonstop until I get it right. And because you're seeing this, that means I actually pulled it off, and it turned out amazingly. Now, the start of our story is in another video. I think it's my last video, or it's one of my last videos. And that video was part of her Christmas present, and I was actually recording the audio Christmas morning at like 12:30ish, and right now it's 12:24 a.m., the day that she's going to be seeing this. Some things never really change. Some things never change. Doing it again. But that was a year ago, and at that point, we had been dating, or we'd been together since we actually met about a month. We met November 16th, 2024. We became official we met November 16th, 2023. We became official December 16th. And today is November 22nd, 2024. Roughly a year since we met, and almost a year since we officially started dating. October 20th, about a month ago now, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. But when I showed her the video at Christmas, I hadn't told her I loved her yet. And it was just me and her in the living room of my house. Everyone else had gone to bed or gone back home. It was just me and her, and she was going to be leaving in like an hour to go back to her house. After the video, she was bawling her eyes out because she thought it was just beautiful. And I remember just sitting there looking into her eyes, and I told her I loved her for the first time, and she said, "I love you too." And ever since then, we've been on the most amazing journey of my life, that so much more than I ever possibly could have imagined. We both started eating better, we both started exercising, we both have gym memberships now. In the last year, I've lost over 55 pounds, and I have completely kept every pound of it off. I still fluctuate between like 5 and 6 pounds, but I have kept off 55 pounds consistently. I have the healthiest diet I've ever had. I barely drink soda anymore. It's just been an absolute wild ride. We've been on so many adventures together, both good and bad. We've experienced enough stuff that most people don't experience within multiple years of relationship. For instance, we've been on adventures. We went camping in the middle of June in Southeast America, which was the Southeast United States, in the middle of the hottest time of the year in Georgia. So that was a lot of fun, and we decided to do it in a tent, which we learned we are not summer tent camping people. But we got through it, and we did it together. We also took a trip up to Kentucky for essentially a 700-mile round trip, when the longest I'd ever driven was maybe, I think, 80 miles. And I went from that to 700 miles and didn't even bat an eye. And it was just the most amazing trip ever, because it was just me and her doing our thing, having an adventure together. That was some bad, that was some good, and there was good and bad in both. But I think the experience that takes the cake was at the end of April. I ended up getting really, really sick, to the point that I could no longer swallow. It hurt to swallow. I couldn't physically swallow. I couldn't keep even water down. I was running 103 degree temperatures for multiple days. I had multiple seizures. Well, no, I think this time I only had one seizure, but I had a history of seizures when I have fevers or get sick. And I ended up in the hospital. They did a CT scan, didn't really find anything, they sent me home. The next day, another fever, and it was even harder to swallow. And Sarah basically said, no, you're going to a different hospital, we're getting a second opinion, this is not happening. So we go to a different hospital, they do, well, let me back up and go from the start. We get to the hospital, well, me and my mom get to the hospital, Sarah's still at work, and she's not able to be there yet. And they're completely packed out because it's a busier hospital. I go to the triage room because I am severely dehydrated because I haven't had any water in probably multiple days at this point because I can't swallow. I've had multiple fevers. Probably currently had a fever at the time. That or my fever had just broken, one or the other. I don't really remember. It's kind of hazy from exact details, but got there. The triage room tried to give me an IV like 5 or 6 times, maybe even more. I don't remember the exact details, but they couldn't do it. And only said, we're sorry, we can't get the IV in. You're just going to have to go wait in the waiting room. When they get back to the ER, they'll get the IV in there. It took 2 doctors or multiple nurses, sticking me in 3 different places at the same time on both arms until they finally got an IV in after like a dozen tries. Did a CT scan, found an abscess in my throat that was dangerously close to my carotid artery, and within a couple hours, if it grew any further, I would not have made it. So they did surgery. I was put on a ventilator for 2 or 3 days, and none of us knew if I was going to make it out because we've all heard horror stories of ventilators. But I remember when I woke up, she was there. And she coached me through getting off the ventilator. Because getting off the ventilator is the most horrible and most miserable experience I've ever had in my life. It was virtually impossible. But I remember out of the corner of my eye seeing your hand moving up and down, telling me to breathe in and breathe out. To breathe, to be calm, it would be okay. I was going to get through this. We were going to get through this. If it wasn't for her, I may have never come off the vent. And I remember being in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 9 days after that. I lost 26 pounds in the hospital. I mean, obviously I've gained it back since then, but 26 pounds lost because I couldn't eat or do anything for 9 days. And I remember sitting in the hospital room. It was not a hotel. It was the furthest thing from a hotel. But in the hospital room, I remember sitting with my mom while Sarah was at work. I looked her in the eye and said, I'm going to marry her one day. I think it was the first time I ever actually said that out loud to anybody else. And now here we are, engaged. And I remember the day I came home from the hospital. It was either the day I came home or the day after. She came to see me. And I also had mono at the time on top of the abscess, so she couldn't be anywhere near me. She couldn't do anything or she'd catch mono and it would be a whole other cycle of garbage. And she was still there. And the whole time in the hospital, my mind's playing tricks on me, thinking she's gonna leave, it's just not worth it. But she was still there. Now, when we met, I was just a boy, I had very little life experience. Now, a year later, I've done more growing up than most people have done in 15 years. I have become a man that is able to proudly stand beside her and to be the man that she deserves. I'm the best version of myself for the first time in my life. Unlike when I did the portrait a few years ago, I like who I am now. I'm excited about the future because I get to spend it with the love of my life. We had an engagement dinner a few weeks ago, actually. And in the middle of everyone giving us advice, one of the older ladies said that we looked really happy and we seemed happy. And without skipping a beat, I just said, it's hard not to be. And I kind of looked at her and I mean, look at her. How could she not be happy with us? And apparently, I learned that people don't talk like that much anymore, and I don't get it, because I was really just speaking what was in my heart. That's all I know how to do. That's all I'm ever done. That's all I'm ever going to do. And somehow, she's okay with that. She likes what's in my heart. And I don't know what the future holds for us, but there are some things I do know. Previously, Sarah was my girlfriend. Now, she is temporarily my fiancée. She is soon to be my wife. And it is forever and always my privilege to get to marry her. Sarah, I love you.